From a bridge, Perfidia watches an immigrant detention center below. Later she meets with her French 75 comrades to plan a rescue. That night the cell sneaks in, they board the gate guard, cut a hole in the fence, wake the soldiers and hold them at gunpoint while teams sweep the compound for the prisoners. Perfidia slips into the main office and corners Captain Stephen J. Lockjaw, declaring her group's politics, open borders, bodily freedom, and resistance to state terror. Lockjaw, however, is preoccupied by Perfidia's appearance. She seizes the moment to humiliate him, forcing him to parade with his pants insecurely fastened. Outside, the rebel truck arrives and the detainees are packed into vehicles for escape. On the radio Pat announces they're ready, he then lights a dramatic pyrotechnic distraction. The rebels lock the soldiers behind the gate, toss a smoke grenade, denounce the fascist regime, and drive off amid cheers and gunfire. Pat and Perfidia kiss in the heat of victory. In the months that follow Pat makes explosives while Perfidia directs targeted attacks by phone. Government offices, banks, even power infrastructure go dark as the group wages a campaign of sabotage. Lockjaw watches from the perimeter, tracking their strikes and obsessively returning to thoughts of Perfidia. When he learns she's involved with Pat, jealousy hardens into a personal vendetta. Perfidia and an accomplice later plant devices in a courthouse ceiling, but she's caught in the act by Lockjaw. He offers a bargain, information for leniency. That evening she meets him in a motel and sleeps with him to buy herself time. Months pass and Perfidia's pregnancy becomes obvious, yet she continues actions as if nothing has changed. Her family and Pat worry for the child. When the baby arrives, Perfidia sinks into severe postpartum depression and withdraws. Pat pleads for a stable life as a family, but Perfidia chooses the cause and finally abandons them. While shopping for baby supplies, Pat is approached by Lockjaw, who engages him in conversation and unnerves him with crude flirtation about loving black women. The French 75 staging a bank robbery draw a violent response, an alarm, a car chase through crowded streets, collisions, and finally a foot pursuit. Police corner Perfidia and arrest her. In custody she faces Lockjaw again. He tells her he can spare her prison time if she names French 75's leaders and safehouses. Perfidia refuses. Word of her arrest forces Pat into hiding. Howard, a veteran ally, gives him a pair of small synchronized scanners, a trust device that chirps the same melody when two holders are near each other, plus a complicated code system for secure radio calls, and forged identities so Pat and his daughter can disappear. Pat flees to a new city while Perfidia is placed in witness protection. Using the information she provided under pressure, Lockjaw and his task force roll up many French 75 cells. Arrests, assassinations, and the dismantling of the organization follow. Lockjaw is honored for dismantling the group, but when he visits Perfidia's safe house he finds it empty. She's gone, later reported to be in Mexico. 16 years later Pat's daughter lives under a false name, Willa. She studies martial arts with an instructor, Sergio, while Pat, paranoid, chronically stoned, tries to stay involved. He even shows up for parent-teacher night. Lockjaw still runs immigration enforcement, and he receives an invitation to interview for membership in a secretive white supremacist club, the Christmas Adventurers. They probe him about interracial relationships. He answers no, and the club says they will review his dossier. Howard remains active in small ways, sending coded radio calls. One day he is captured by a bounty hunter. Avanti! Neighborhood kids rush to his house and use his radio gear to broadcast an SOS, Howard has been taken. At a military facility a soldier threatens Howard's sister, and Howard, under duress, gives names and locations of other rebels. That intel funnels to Lockjaw, who organizes a staged, law and order, sweep meant to flush out Pat and Willa's community. At home, the pressure mounts. Willa and Pat argue. She resents acting as his caretaker while he indulges his vices. Pat hands Willa one of Howard's trust devices before she goes to the school dance and distrustfully warns her friend's driver. At the dance, Willa slips into the bathroom and hears the devices chirp. Deandra, a French 75 survivor, appears and confirms identity with the old code. She tells Willa that an SOS is live and they must leave immediately. Outside the gym the military closes in. Students are corralled and interrogated. The authorities ask for Willa's number. Her friends say she has no phone because her father forbids one, though secretly she does. At the same time, Pat gets a call. Howard's been captured and Lockjaw is closing in. Pat, intoxicated and forgetful, struggles to recite revolutionary code until a supervisor recognizes him and verifies his identity. Only then do they provide rendezvous coordinates. By the time Pat moves, soldiers have already stormed homes across town. Pat flees via a tunnel but is nearly overcome by gas. He makes it out gasping for air and attempts to call the resistance again, but the radio operator refuses to help unless he recites the full code, testing loyalty. The raid spread. Businesses are forced to close, protesters gather, and local residents resist. Sergio organizes a shelter operation from his store, shepherding migrants to a church through a hidden room and a tunnel. He ferries people out while arming Pat and preparing an escape. The cops eventually force their way into Sergio's shop. Pat and an ally slip out over the roof. Pat's pursuit ends when he falls and is tased. Arrested, he's processed and then taken to a hospital for screening. A nurse, speaking in code, helps him escape. Sergio drives him to safety and gives him last-minute instructions. Meanwhile, Lockjaw finds traces of Willa's refuge, a gray van seen heading up Craw Creek Road toward the Chupacabra Hills. In the hills, Deandra has placed Willa in a convent run by radical sisters who hide and train refugee youths. The nuns treat Willa roughly at first, cautious about the child of a notorious militant, but they shelter her and teach her survival and firearms. Lockjaw obtains a DNA swab from Willa and runs it against his own sample. The machine reads a match. Willa is officially his biological daughter. He ghoulishly savors the revelation. He likes to think of himself wronged, declaring Perfidia a semen thief and painting himself as the victim. He decides Willa must be removed. Avanti, the bounty hunter, is contracted to take Willa to a far-right militia compound. Along the route she fights. Avanti, reluctant to kill a child, refuses to execute her and instead delivers her to the compound for money. There he witnesses the militia's brutality and finally uncuffs Willa, turning on the guards. In the chaos, Willa arms herself, kills several attackers, takes Avanti's car keys, and escapes. On the road she is chased by Tim, a shadowy fixer with a clean face and dirty work. He's been hired by the powerful club to make problems disappear. Tim crashes trying to run her down. Willa, remembering the old code, shoots him dead when he can't answer that call. Exhausted, she finally hears the faint melody from Howard's trust device. Pat is close. Pat arrives, breathless and broken, and answers Willa's frantic password. She recognizes his voice, and they embrace, a raw reunion after years of abandonment and terror. Pat gives her a letter he's long kept, a confession from Perfidia, written to Charlene. In it, Perfidia apologizes, explains her choices, and admits she thinks of her child every day. She hopes Willa will grow up to change the world differently, better, and, one day, that they might meet. Back in the corridors of power, the Christmas adventurers induct Lockjaw, but as he settles into his new office, the room is gas-filled, and he dies in seconds. Two men in hazmat suits remove his body, and the club's expediency is revealed: heroes are expendable. As the film closes, Pat and Willa begin to rebuild the small freedoms in their life. Pat finally gives Willa a phone. They monitor rebellion radio traffic and Willa starts showing up at protests. The last image is plain and stubborn. The fight continues, messy, personal, and unglorified, one battle after another.